Like, are y'all dumb? Like, no. 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 I ain't gonna go. What you could do? What you could do? Not getting that in. Not only is it not cancel culture, but even if it was, I don't give a about you. You. That's why you're replying, because I have a platform and you don't. So how about you suck my investigate that. Like, are you on crack? Rock? They're like, oh, it's cancel culture. Oh, blah, 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 because you say you will get us fired. You and your transphobic, bigoted ass. Y'all are like, they're like, oh, you're anti-white. You're an anti-white racist. You're dumb. That's dumb. That makes no sense. I don't care. I don't care. But even if I were, my ancestors are shrieking. I'm anti-white. Feel like that. What you could do? What you could do? What you could do? I hear. Be mad.
She's anti-white. She's racist. She's fat. Oh, she cancel culture.
I actually don't give all of you held hands and jumped off a cliff. I don't give a. It's so crazy because my breasts look so good. My titties look so good. I'm doing the world a service by showing you what I see. That's why. Like, they really believe that because they live in fear of being called the racist that they are, my greatest fear is being called anti-white. I am sorry to tell you, baby, we do not care. We do not care over here. Anti-white. I've been called worse by better, bitch.
This is Olurinatti, or Olayemi Olurin. I'll just be calling her Olay. According to her website, she's a movement lawyer, political commentator, writer, and abolitionist thinker. In the Civil War era, abolitionists advocated for the end of slavery. Looking at Olay's Substack, it seems her abolitionist perspective is focused on the prison system. This stance makes sense for a public defender who studied political science, African American studies, and law, justice, and culture. What I do think is a bit unusual is her pivot to a more media-centric career. I don't think there are many instances of somebody going from a public defender to this.
So you know how I said I gonna spread positivity on the timeline, right? Like, I ain't gonna post the negativity so much, like, whatever, cool. But now these people who've been DMing me hate on Instagram, like DMing it to me directly, oh, I've been lighting up. Oh, listen, I've taken the audio notes. Like, when I say to y'all, I dragging people. I carried on so bad in this DM. I carried on so bad, I'm not going to be shocked if Instagram locked me out my account.
It's not exactly the kind of behavior I would hope my defense attorney would be engaging in publicly. Looking at Olay's Twitter alone, I think this is the most chronically online person I've ever covered, somehow. Hassan Piker usually streams for 8 or more hours a day, but even he doesn't seem to be nearly as addicted to Twitter as Olay. I'll scroll through the last few days of her tweeting so you can see what that looks like. Keep in mind, this isn't including her replies. The majority of her tweets are either politically or racially charged. Given the current political environment and Olay's combative attitude, she's basically bound to attract some level of attention on the internet, positive or negative. Unfortunately, this seems to have taken the form of Twitter hate. I want to be clear, even though I'm critical of Olay in this video, doesn't mean that I condone harassment towards her. A recently pinned tweet of hers describes the kind of hate she's been receiving. She also claims she's experienced 6 different harassment campaigns in the last 2 months. It's clear she attracts hatred, but how much of that hate can be chalked up to a coordinated effort against her, or rather 6 coordinated campaigns. If you knew who Olay was before clicking on this video, you probably know her from her recent interview with iDubbbz, or perhaps you're familiar with the drama between Olay and Anna Kasparian from the Young Turks. But when did her shift from the law to the media begin? Olay graduated from Ohio University in 2015. She excelled in her studies and made connections with her professors along the way. It was around 2022 when she started to appear in media consistently, authoring articles in publications like Teen Vogue and The Nation, media appearances on platforms like The Young Turks and The Breakfast Club, as well as tons of interactions and appearances on various independent media. This resembles a successful media campaign, whether that was deliberate or not. In October of 2020, 2022, Olay had what is probably the most viral moment of her career. A clip of Olay pushing back against police brutality was played on Last Week Tonight with John Oliver. The case in question has to do with a black man fleeing from a traffic stop, which isn't good but definitely doesn't deserve death. On YouTube alone, the segment has been watched over 5 million times. Her media profile would continue to grow at a rapid pace. I do have some disagreements with Olay's worldview so far, but up until this point, I haven't seen her exhibit any hateful or hostile behavior. In these earlier appearances, she comes across as more professional, but as her Twitter presence grew, so did her attitude and ego. This is from March of 2022, before some of her bigger media appearances.
White women. I'm sorry to even address y'all, because I like to mind my own business. I know I shouldn't be in y'all business, but listen. After the Tinder swindler, inventing Anna, and now bad vegan, clearly you bitches ain't need a new leadership. How do you go from, oh, I could get Alec Baldwin, to I'm a in his comments on Twitter?
Even though this is obnoxious, cringe, and ratchet, it's clear she's just goofing around about white people drama. It's definitely not my cup of tea, but it's not hateful. Even though it's racial, it's not charged or inflammatory. The same cannot be said for this clip.
Like, if my audience was mad at me, then that'd be different. But you can suck a I don't give a
She's anti-white. She's racist. She's fat. Oh, she's cancel culture.
I actually don't give if all of you held hands and jumped off a cliff. I don't give a It's so crazy.
Basically, anyone who's not in her audience who disagrees with her can die for all she cares. What a great sense of justice! The first piece of noteworthy drama surrounding Olay, in my opinion, is with Anna Kasparian of the Young Turks. I made a video on this about a month ago, but that video was focusing more on Anna and Vosh, not Olay. Anna tweeted out that she doesn't want to be called a birthing person because she finds that offensive. The most common argument I hear against this is nobody really uses the term birthing person on a regular basis. At worst, Anna's tweet was just a minor misconception. People like Vosh and Olay, however, had a field day with this.
This is the way that, and I want to call this on what it is, on the white womanness of all of this, because this is the way that white women act that makes people feel like you're not real allies. And very much so, I want to speak to the Bill Burr joke of being in on the heist and not liking your cut, because this is the top, tippity top, most privileged shit ever. Do you know how many words, how many ways of classification exist in this society that I don't like as a black woman that you live with? I think I like every time urban to me and black people, urban all the damn time.
If you have a problem with the word urban, you're allowed to talk about that. If I have a problem with people calling moderates fascists, then I'm allowed to talk about it. If Anna has a problem being called a birthing person, then she's allowed to talk about it. How and why is Anna's tweet about language regarding trans people being viewed from the lens of race? Like, what is this argument Olay is even putting forward? If you're a white woman, you're not allowed to complain about things? This clip is from the Leftist Mafia, a podcast hosted solely by left-leaning creators. And yes, the now infamous Olurinatti was a part of it. Both Olay and Olurinatti are no longer part of the podcast, but Olurinatti was kicked out while Olay left on her own accord. Olay's departure from the Leftist Mafia is far more recent than this clip, so we'll get to that later. Anyway, the amount of time Olay spends focusing on Anna's whiteness is weird.
I like Anna, but I feel a little bit like this is the coddle the white lady hour.
Which makes her point about bigotry a bit ironic.
I feel like when white people start talking about they feel like they're being erased when we make the Little Mermaid black and stuff like that and blah blah, racist. We all know it's racist. The same way when you start using this bullshit logic when it comes to my womanhood, yo, get out of here. Yeah, it's the same thing, my guy. It's the same thing. You just like this kind of bigotry. That's all. Like, that's all.
This is the bigotry that you feel entitled to.
Olay seems to feel entitled to her bigotry towards white people, especially white women. Even if you buy into the notion that black people can't be racist, they can be hateful, bigoted, ignorant, and arrogant, just like anybody else. Olay then points out that Anna gets defended on certain things, but she doesn't.
I have to say it. Oh my God, I have to say it. I like Anna, but I feel a little bit like this is the coddle the white lady hour. And you know why? And you know why? I thought this even earlier, because before this, the Majority Report put out a thing too, and everybody else, and I was like, boy, everybody sure feels the need to trip over their fucking feet to come out to defend her for getting cooked, when all of the people get cooked all the time. Nobody I have yet to watch a video of anybody defending me from getting cooked. I've never seen it.
I don't think people were coming to Anna's defense simply because she's white. Anna Kasparian has been a host at the Young Turks, a progressive news outlet, for about 16 years, which means she's been in the media for about a decade and a half longer than Olay. It makes sense that people would be more quick to defend Anna because she's far more established and popular. Plus, Anna's Armenian, which would technically mean she's Asian, but I guess she's white passing, so who cares?
Absolutely nobody is trying to cancel Anna. And let me make sure I say that before anybody want to clip 5 minutes of what it was an hour conversation or 10 minutes. Nobody. Literally, I want to let the record reflect.
A month after Olay says nobody is trying to cancel Anna, Olay tries to cancel Anna. She tweeted out, "Don't you dare call her a birthing person, but she'll gladly call you the N-word." The video shows clips of Anna saying the N-word out of context on the Young Turks. The context being she was highlighting egregious examples of racism. Deliberately using out-of-context clips to try to smear somebody is pretty scummy. It's over the pettiest shit, too. The N-word Chronicles continue with the iDubbbz interview. I want to be as brief as possible with the iDubbbz backstory, but I also need to give some context. iDubbbz is a YouTuber who built his platform on edgy content. Years ago, he would use slurs in his videos. He's recently apologized for that, but the apology got a variety of backlash from different communities. Some people, like myself, think the apology was over the top. Olay, on the other hand, doesn't think it's nearly enough.
An apology is not enough for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that he can do that will ever be enough.
Yeah.
And I think that him and any of these other creators who rebrand, if you genuinely are looking to better yourself, you have to acknowledge and accept that it won't be enough for some people.
Yeah.
The person on the right is Francesca Ramsey. She was a YouTuber who was most prominent during the mid-2010s. Her most popular content were videos like Things White Girls Say to Black Girls and 5 Tips for Being an Ally. The reason why she's in this video is because she claims iDubbbz made content on her which led to harassment.
So recently there's been a wave of people who've made bigoted content on the internet coming forward and apologizing. TikTok, we've got Kelly Cagdon. On YouTube, we have iDubbbz, I think is how you say his name. So I hosted a show for MTV called MTV Decoded. I actually created the show, but at the time that the show was on, I dealt with a lot of harassment because of it from these people that labeled themselves anti-social justice warriors, anti-feminists on YouTube, including iDubbbz. And he made a number of videos where he used the N-word fully uncensored, where he put my face in videos and called me, you know, and, you know, said that my work was cancer, and like my work made him want to. Most of these videos have been privated, so I can't show them to you, but I've seen them, and he created a culture and a fan base that then harassed me.
The thing is, I don't ever remember iDubbbz making a video on Francesca Ramsey. No one does. I remember Quaffine, I remember Lucic Diamond Eyes, I remember Pisces, but I don't remember iDubbbz making a video on Francesca Ramsey. This doesn't necessarily mean it never happened, but the only evidence to support this video was ever made is Francesca's word. Even Anissa doesn't recall Ian making a video on Francesca. If you want to say iDubbbz contributed to a culture of harassment, then sure, whatever. But there are people who see it the other way around.
But at the time that the show was on, I dealt with a lot of harassment because of it from these people that—
Because your content was racist as like, that was a reaction to the content. That's like a huge part of the story here.
Can you give me the backstory of what this show is?
You can't jump on the internet and make a show that basically propagates the stereotype that all white people are racists and not expect people to respond.
I don't know much about her show MTV Decoded, but when a major television network pays somebody to morally grandstand and virtue signal, a lot of people are going to be upset with that. If it's about politics or race relations, then you can expect even harsher feedback. That's the case for everybody, not a specific race. That's not to say I condone harassment, but that's the reality any public figure with a loud or controversial opinion has to deal with. They act like this hate and harassment only occurs on one side of the political political spectrum.
And it's often worse than just ignoring or refusing to hear those communities that these creators are causing harm to. Often, their audiences will attack those communities.
But even Noah Sampson has to remind his audience not to harass the people he talks about.
You should go watch that video. I've left it linked in the description. I'd appreciate it if you did, so you can be sure that I'm not misrepresenting any of his points. I'd also like to ask that you don't comment on the video unless you have something constructive to say. I know for the vast majority of you who are respectful and normal and cool and chill even, that might sound patronizing, and for that I apologize. But some of you do need to hear that. So sorry and thank you, and you're welcome.
And that's a good, sometimes necessary thing to remind your audience of. But this phenomenon of audiences attacking people doesn't have to do with being black or white or right-wing or left-wing. If you're a creator with a sizable audience and you criticize others, there's a chance of this happening. It should be discouraged, but there's always going to be some bad apples. Unless the creators are coordinating some kind of harassment themselves, they're not responsible for the actions of their audience. That's insane. Francesca has a negative perspective of critical content in general.
It's really easy to, and I'm guilty of this too, like I don't participate in, I used to like hate tweet stuff. I'd be like, I hate this show, so let me sit here and talk about it. And it's like, you know what? Even if I don't like the content, they did the work and they put it out in the world. Instead of me doing the same thing, I'm sitting here hating on them and shitting on them when I could be putting this energy into making the thing that I'm actually interested and passionate about.
That's the thing though, some people are passionate about analysis and criticism, and hate tweeting about something is way different than making a detailed critique. There can certainly be artistry to criticism. If you look at someone's content like Seth Zintach, not sure if I'm saying that right, it's clear a lot of time, effort, and creativity go into those videos. But because Seth doesn't make the video games that he talks about,
it's because you can't create anything from scratch.
Even someone like Little Joel, who I disagree with a lot, understands the compelling nature of criticism and hate.
I wanted to explain why hating is so compelling and why I so often on the channel prefer to dislike stuff or disagree with stuff. The reason why, put simply, is that it's a more rhetorically powerful thing to do. It has more energy.
Francesca's stance against criticism is a bit rich given her racial analysis.
Notably though, in his apology, he singled out only one creator. At first, the only name he singles out to apologize to in this video
is a white woman.
Francesca, okay, we're right here. We are right.
I clocked that immediately.
The reason why he apologized to Tana specifically is because she's the only one that he went up to in person. Many people consider it to be the most egregious action of his entire YouTube career. She was not singled out for being a white woman, my lord. Not only did Tana get an apology because she's a white woman, but iDubbbz defends his wife because she's a white woman, apparently.
His audience, what happened is the audience—
they were attacking his wife.
And that is the tea. And that's the tea.
That's when it got real.
and that's what I'm like, so it got real for you when a white woman was hurt. And in the apology, it's only a white woman who is singled out.
So what, he wouldn't have apologized to the black community if his wife was black? Are we really trying to make this argument? If Anissa is the reason why he apologized, then shouldn't they be praising Anissa? Or at the very least, not call her out for merely being a white woman? The absurd racial analysis doesn't stop there.
They can't stand to see us, and this is not just exclusive to black people, this is marginalized people, period. This is what you're seeing happening during Pride, right? This idea that if I think you are less than me, how dare you like yourself? Exactly. How dare you be happy? How dare you be successful?
This is said in relation to Jinx, a person iDubbbz made a content cop on. Their perspective is, iDubbbz chased Jinx off the platform because iDubbbz was being racially territorial. iDubbbz did use the N-word in that video, which isn't ideal, but that was in no way part of his argument. The core of his argument was that Jinx was stealing content and violating fair use under the guise of reaction. And even though lazy reaction content is far more commonplace these days, the ethics of doing so is still regularly debated. Jinx was a pretty bad YouTuber, and I'm not sure if he would have survived even without the content cop. Then there's their take on how problematic creators can appease them and make amends.
The only person that I've really seen take any real measurable responsibility is Jenna Marbles. She said, I'm out.
If we had the ability to cancel you, you wouldn't have been successful in the first place.
An apology is not enough for me.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything that he can do that will ever be enough.
I just played 3 clips, but they all tie into this one point. If it's never going to be enough, if they've been wanting to cancel him and ruin his career, if their best example of a creator taking accountability is leaving the internet, then it's clear they're not looking for any real form of reconciliation. They just want the power they think iDubbbz has to be able to scare people off the internet. The thing they were complaining about him doing to Jinx. If this is how they're going to treat these situations, then there's no reason to apologize in these circumstances, because it seems like their end goal is to silence you completely. Like they said, the most accountable they've ever seen a creator be is when they left the internet entirely. But if they can get some reparations first, well, that works too.
Go look at the privated videos on the videos, every video you did, every content cop on a Jinx, what you did to you, what you did to all of them, and what was the revenue on those videos, and pay and cut some checks.
Yeah, let's throw the concept of money into the situation where nothing is ever going to be enough. That sounds great. That sounds like hell. Plus, iDubbbz is out $250,000 because he mismanaged a charity event. I don't know if it's the best time to be asking him for reparations. The irrationality of both Olay and Francesca just doesn't stop.
When I encountered one of his fans in the airport, I had to ask myself, am I going to exit this conversation and continue to have my life? There's all of these conversations about don't call me a Karen and don't call me white and don't call me racist. It's like when those names are used, your feelings are hurt. But when someone calls me the N-word, I have to wonder, is this person going to try and kill me?
The way she frames it, she makes it sound like there was a deranged iDubbbz fan calling her the N-word at the airport. But on Twitter, she clarifies this guy merely said he was a fan of iDubbbz. If another person saying they're a fan of a certain content creator makes you fear for your life, that's a you problem. That irrational fear and paranoia belongs to you. Olay and Francesca share this kind of victim mentality, which, in my opinion, is part of the reason why Olay left the Leftist Mafia podcast.
I hate this. Every week I dread going into Thursdays. I do not enjoy the period after. I like her so much better on here. Why is she always high on Leftist Mafia? And it's like, no, first of all, I'm high all the time. I hate this show. And then I'm like, I'm high. I have to get high because I hate it here. Like, that's why. I'm smoking more because I'm miserable. I have spent years now contributing to white platforms that I don't get anything out of. Like, I remember I don't get anything out of building my profile, whatever it is.
If you had to guess what Olay's main reason behind leaving the podcast was, what would your guess be? Would you be at all surprised if I told you it has to do with race? Specifically, she found the Leftist Mafia audience to be racist, saying that they would regularly single her out.
And having to deal with, wow, what a surprise, to have an intelligent, articulate black woman on the internet is getting ton of very unfair and unsolicited hatred from all corners of the world, because you're exposing yourself to a lot of, and predominantly white leftist spaces. There are a lot of white content creators, white political creators, all that kind of stuff. It's basically that was the gist of a lot of it.
That's pretty. That is it in a nutshell, right? It made me feel like I'm dehumanizing myself because I'm constantly trying to tell myself that I should be okay with dealing with and enduring something that I don't see anybody else dealing with. Like, I look in the comments and I'm like, no one else on the show has talked about this way, and I've seen on the rare occasions that other people in the show have experienced the tiniest fraction of the shit that I deal with, they'd be upset. They'd be very upset.
That's a nice looking microphone. Why does it sound so awful? Anyway, out of all of the people who are on the Leftist Mafia, Olay did seem to be the one to get the most amount of negative feedback. But she also received the most amount of positive feedback, at least as far as I can tell. Even though she's not my style whatsoever, she was easily the most entertaining and interesting person on the Leftist Mafia. It would naturally make sense that her loud personality would draw the most attention, both positive and negative. Race may have played into this to an extent, but the way they talk about it here makes it sound like the only reason why Olay was getting any kind of backlash was race. Plus, Olay looks at just about everything through the lens of racial dynamics. So yeah, some of the disagreements the audience has with Olay are going to have to do with racial dynamics. That doesn't make them racist. Olay also complains about the drama surrounding the show.
I have to deal with, it's just like, it's been an endless barrage of just drama and foolishness and things I don't care about. I feel like I'm just getting locked into this like
niche internet town square of foolishness.
But Olay's Twitter page in itself is an endless barrage of drama and foolishness. She describes her time on the leftist Mafia as a niche internet town square of foolishness. I do think that's a fairly accurate way to describe that podcast, but Olay's solution for being too niche is to close herself off even further.
I am rejecting people's free marketplace of ideas, which is free marketplace of ideas, which has been nothing but accept bigotry, accept open bigotry in these spaces. I'm not dealing with that shit no more.
She's rejecting the free marketplace of ideas. Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached peak political perfection. Don't like what someone has to say? Cover your ears and call them a bigot. The leftist Mafia isn't enough of an echo chamber for you? Well then live stream with exclusively black women. Getting called anti-white? Tell them to go jump off a cliff. The possibilities are endless when you don't allow yourself to engage with those who disagree with you. Given these unlikable traits, I can see how there may be a coordinated effort against her. But 6 different harassment campaigns in the last 2 months? I doubt that. There was one person that I could tell for sure was going after her on Twitter, but his politics seem to be all over the map. I would call him an outlier. As for the other quote-unquote harassment campaigns, in my opinion, it seems far more likely she would naturally draw in negative attention, mostly due to her combative and inflammatory nature. It's often easier to think the world is out to get you than it is to face reality. I'll close with a passage from Robert Greene's book, Mastery. If we can make it look like we are not really responsible for our fate, for what happens to us in life, then our apparent powerlessness is more palatable. For this reason, we become attracted to certain narratives. It is genetics that determines much of what we do. We are just products of our times. The individual is just a myth. Human behavior can be reduced to statistical trends. Many take this change in value a step further, giving their passivity a positive veneer. They romanticize the self-destructive artist who loses control of him or herself. Anything that smacks of discipline or effort seems fussy and passé. What matters is the feeling behind the artwork, and any hint of craftsmanship or work violates this principle. They come to accept things that are made cheaply and quickly. The idea that they might have to expend much effort to get what they want has been eroded by the proliferation of devices that do so much of the work for them, fostering the idea that they deserve all of this, that it is their inherent right to have and to consume what they want. Alright, that's gonna have to do it for this one. Shout out to the best subscriber squad in all of YouTube. I hope everyone has a wonderful day.
I don't have any black friends.